Just recording this webinar for folks who couldn't make it today. Welcome to everybody once again. I know I've said that a whole bunch, but I'm so happy so many people are here. So tonight's webinar, this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are, uh, is called Navigating Streaming Services, a guide to audio descriptions for people who are blind or visually impaired. Today's webinar is going to last about an hour, and there's several points during this time where we're going to give you guys a chance to ask questions or comment. At any time, you can put a question or a comment into the chat, and Elena will read those out loud when the time comes. But just some housekeeping before we move forward so that all of this can be as smooth as possible. So we're expecting a good turnout today. So everybody's going to be muted until the question and answer section. So if you're finding that you can't talk and nobody can hear you, that's on purpose so that we give people only one person a chance to talk at a time. So if you have a question or a comment, please raise your virtual hand at any time by pressing Alt and the letter Y on your keyboard. This will make it easy for our moderator to see you and call on you and puts you at the top of the list when you do that Alt Y. Also, if you are called on, you must be sure to unmute yourself before speaking. So we give you permission to speak, and you also have to unmute yourself if you want to be heard. And our moderator today is the fabulous Elena, who helps us with all kinds of stuff with these webinars and many, many other things at the Lighthouse for the Blind. So to raise your hand, if you're using Zoom on a PC, you can press Alt-Y when you're in the Zoom window. To lower your hand when finished, just press Alt-Y again. It's like a toggle. Also, if you've dialed in by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *9 to lower your hand. This webinar is brought to you today by the Lighthouse for the Blind Incorporated. Our organization is headquartered in Seattle and has manufacturing facilities in Seattle, Washington, Spokane, Washington, and Somerville, South Carolina, where we make aerospace parts and products for the U.S. government at all three of those locations. We own and operate what are called Ability One base supply centers. So these are kind of like retail stores at military bases where we sell our products. And these are located again on military bases up and down the West Coast. We also provide contract closeout services to the military at a few other locations in California, Alabama, and Virginia. So we're in a few different places. Our mission, though, and this is my favorite part, is to empower people who are blind, deaf-blind, and blind with other disabilities by creating diverse, sustainable, and meaningful employment opportunities. And we're currently hiring. So if you or somebody that you know is a person who is blind, please scope out our open positions at lhblind.org/jobs to see if there's a job for you or somebody that you know. Elena is going to put that link in the chat, lhblind.org. So the webinar today is one of several exciting things that we're doing as part of our new community-based programs and services that we've recently launched at the Lighthouse. So we're a little more than, actually, we're like 2/3 of the way through year 2 of launching these webinars, and we're so excited about where these are going. And we want to thank you guys, our participants, for your support and for spreading the word about what we do. So stay tuned for more and feel free to reach out to us at any time with questions. And please continue to share any of this info with people you think might benefit. And just so you know, you can always email us at questions@lhblind.org. One final note, tomorrow you're going to be receiving an email with relevant links on everything that we covered today. So I'll be sending web links to different instructional web pages that you can refer to later, all the kind of different stuff that we talked about. So you'll be receiving that in 24 hours. So tomorrow afternoon, you'll get that. That email is a great resource. There's also a link to a survey that we would really appreciate you completing in that email. What you tell us actually matters, and we've already implemented a lot of the different things that people have suggested in the surveys. That's where I get a lot of my topic ideas. You guys, people say, "Hey, I'd love to hear a webinar about this," and if it works, we make it work. So everybody, all this talking and stuff like that, I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Tim Paulding, and I manage our computer training programs and our Braille literacy programs at all of our Lighthouse locations. I'm stationed or located at our Spokane, Washington facility. And I also teach orientation and mobility there too, to people one-on-one. So I've been in the blindness rehabilitation field for a little over 15 years. 11 of those have been at the Lighthouse. And as I've taught both assistive technology and orientation and mobility for most of that time. And I also, last fun fact, I also happen to be blind. So I'm going to now introduce our guest, and we're going to launch into this interview. Fred Brack is webmaster of the Audio Description Project. He's also an audio describer and voiceover artist. And I just can't wait to talk to Fred. So, hey, Fred.
Hey, Tim, thanks so much for inviting me. I obviously love to talk about the website I started and maintained, so I hope I can enlighten your listeners.
Yes, yes, I have a feeling you can. So, yeah, we'll just get right into it. So, Fred, can you tell us about the audio description project and what is it and how exactly is it useful to people who are blind or visually impaired?
The Audio Description Project is what we call an initiative of the American Council of the Blind, who started the project in 2010, picking up a website that I had started in 2003 for another organization that became defunct. Um, and it is the authoritative reference in the United States, if not the world, for what is audio description, what it can do for you. If you're a provider of audio description services, how do you, who are you and how do people get in touch with you, et cetera. But it's primarily for people who are blind or have low vision and need the assistance of somebody interpreting the visual nuances of anything that is visual, but in particular, movies and TV series. So the Audio Description Project website covers what is audio description, where do you find it, how do you get to it, and specifically, the thing that I spend the majority of my time on, what are the movies, videos, and TV series that have audio description tracks so that you can be helped in deciding not only where do I find something I really want, or what streaming services should I subscribe to? You mentioned the cost before, obviously.
Mhm.
So there is a cost, and you have to conserve your dollars. So it's going to depend whether you have young children who have visual impairment, or you're an adult who would like more adult oriented comment, including some R-rated and TVMA type materials and TV series and things like that. And so we try to help tell you everything we can about what is audio described and how to get to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like how many different ways there are to search and find uh, audio described titles on that website. So it's not just they have a master list, but it's not just a master list. It's a searchable list, but you can also search by provider. So all those streaming services that I mentioned, there's a link that you can click on to look at all the audio described content on Netflix, for example.
Yes, and that's where we start. We start with a provider-oriented service. I cover 20 different streaming services. You know
Whoa.
the big ones, Netflix, Disney, Hulu, etc. You probably don't know the small ones, or you may not know the small ones like Plex and Real Abilities and Magellan TV and Pluto, etc. But you got to start someplace. So if you're doing anything, we want you to know about it. And if you subscribe to a certain service, you really don't care what's on Hulu if you don't subscribe to it.
Right.
On the other hand, if you really care about a certain series or whatever, and you start punching in some names and you say, gee, Hulu has a lot of stuff that I want, then this is a good indication that you should be subscribing to Hulu. So you can start with looking at the service, and then you can also look at what we call the master list, which covers every single one of the 11,500 plus described videos that are available to you today in all the different media, which includes all the streaming services, live cinema, DVD, television, and an oddball, if you will, but important to know about, Spectrum Access, which provides just the audio description tracks for movies that you might be watching elsewhere. And I should mention, because I don't want to forget this later, we actually list about 7,000 titles available in the United States on streaming services, which have audio description tracks in languages other than English.
Oh, wow.
So if you're studying Spanish and would like to watch something in Spanish but get the Spanish audio description track, you can do that. But on the other hand, if you know Hindi or Telugu or some other very low use perhaps language, we have anywhere from 1 to several thousand titles in what I'll call foreign languages. And I'm talking about the audio description language. So those are available, and that might be of help to a senior family member of somebody who's come to the United States, perhaps with their family, and the family, senior family members may not speak English. And so this may be very useful to them if they have vision impairment.
Yeah, I think all kinds of ways that would be useful. I didn't even know that. Wow. So, Fred, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this audio description project? And this started long before the ACB picked it up, right?
That's correct. 52 years ago, I married a woman who was blind. And so I'd been doing audio description, although not knowing it, for many, many years.
Yeah.
And then when I retired from IBM, my wife said to me, you know, you've been doing audio description for me, and I understand there's a local organization which does audio description. We'd never really been involved with them before. She said, and I heard they're giving out a class on how to be an audio describer. You ought to go do that. So I went to a class back in 1999, taught by Joel Snyder, subsequently who obtained his PhD in audio description, which is a rarity. Wow. And he now prefers to be referred to as Dr. Joel Snyder, but he was Joel Snyder, just plain old Joel Snyder then, and he is a world authority on audio description. He's been to, I don't know, 100 countries or something like that, teaching audio description all over the world. And he taught the class there, and that's how I learned to be an audio describer. And I became a board member and audio describer for a local organization called Arts Access. But many different states in the United States have organizations like Arts Access with audio describers, and we offer our services to local theaters. So what the organization does is primarily live theater audio description, although occasionally we will do movie audio description. We also do audio description for art, which I have particularly enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
So that's how I got involved in audio description.
Yeah.
And in 2002, I went to a conference in Washington, D.C., sponsored by Audio Description International, just because it sounded really interesting. And I met the person who was elected the president, who was trying to revitalize this somewhat defunct organization. And he asked me if I would run a website for him, which I did starting in 2003. And that's how I got into it. And I would just like to mention that back in 2003, it was very frustrating because there were no streaming services. There was almost nothing audio described on TV, and we were getting about 2 DVDs a year
Oh,
audio
wow.
described. And so until about 2009, the number of DVDs was about it. If you either got one of these few 10 about DVDs with audio description or not, and it was about 2015 when the skies broke and streaming services came on board. But I would like to mention that streaming services are not mandated by law to provide audio description. So it's largely due to the work of the American Council of the Blind in convincing them, if you
Mm,
will. There's something called structured negotiation, which is just shy of suing,
yep.
to get people to do audio description. And once Netflix broke and iTunes broke, the dams broke. And now we have 20 different services doing it.
Yeah, and I remember in 2015, was that so the laws are only applicable to cable services and over-the-air stuff, right?
The law, which the FCC tried to implement around 2002, was challenged by an organization that I'd rather not mention because it had to do with people who were blind,
Hmm.
and it was not the American Council of the Blind, and by the TV networks themselves who didn't want to have to do this.
Hmm.
And, I don't want to get into politics, but we all know Congress takes forever to do anything. They took
Yes.
7 years to
Wow.
finally resolve that and come out with the Communications Video Act, which gave the FCC the authority to mandate that 4 TV networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, plus 5 non-broadcast networks, which vary every 3 years based on who are the most popular ones and who
Uh-huh.
does not deserve an exemption due to things like we only do news, like CNBC.
Yeah.
And every 3 years, those get added for a total of 9 networks. And they are mandated to do audio description at a certain number of hours per year. And the good thing is they all exceed that number. And some of the ones that have rolled off because they were non-broadcast networks who were no longer in the top 5 um, have still continued to provide audio description, and we thank them for that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Speaking of things like totally breaking, I remember Netflix in 2015 really started it. And I was like, wow, I can watch Netflix and get audio descriptions. And now, like you said, there's so many. I'm sure you have these stats, but Apple TV has I took these right off of your website. Apple TV has 239 audio described titles. Disney, 1247 audio described titles. Hulu, 579. iTunes, 2,273. Max has 1086. Netflix has 2,617 audio described titles, which is awesome. And then the biggest was Amazon was Prime Video, right?
Yes,
But
57, 57.
yeah, but a lot of those, and so with Prime Video though, they have a lot of their free stuff, but there weren't as many that come included with Prime. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
that's true. The service is really, first place, there's 2 basic types of streaming services, SVOD and TVOD. The
uh-huh,
VOD portion stands for video on demand. That's what streaming is. You
gotcha.
choose when you want it. The S stands for subscription. Like Netflix says, you pay me this much money and you can have anything we offer as many
Ah,
times as you want any time of the day. TVOD is transactional. I do a transaction. It's like going into a supermarket, and it says, I wish to buy this, or I wish to rent it. And typically, if you rent a video, you can start at any time in the next week, for instance, but once you start, you have 2 days to watch it. You
yes.
watch it as many times as you want in those 2 days, but that's how that works. So you've got the subscription version and the transactional. Prime Video is unusual in that it's just about the only service, which is both. Some are subscription because you either are a member of Amazon Prime,
Mm-hmm.
which automatically gives you access, or you subscribe separately at a lower monthly price just to Prime Video. And let me just
Yeah.
mention, students and military get a reduced rate on either one of those things for Prime and for other services. If you're
Oh,
a
I didn't know
student
that.
in the
Wow.
military, you should check with the service to find out if you can get a discount. So some of the stuff is completely free, and they put that on a separate, well, it's got a separate name and it does have a website, but it's basically Prime Video. It's called Freevee with a small letter
Oh,
Freevee. And there are 311 titles there that are totally free. And by the way, if it says free, it means necessarily they're going to get paid because you're going to watch an ad. In other words,
yeah,
advertising.
absolutely.
You couldn't have a choice to get rid of it. And then
Yes.
there are some on Prime Video, which are free, and they are also come with ads. Although now, just this year, they're saying, pay me an extra $3 a month, and you don't have to watch those ads. So
Do ad free.
that
Yeah.
was a little bit intriguing. But the vast majority of the items on Prime Video, as I think you were alluding to, are you either buy or rent. So there is an
Yeah.
extra fee. But you've got 22% of them, 1,274 titles, which are free with ads on Prime Video.
Oh, nice. Awesome. All right. So, last question, and I was really interested in this one. Uh, During the time that you've been involved in the audio description project, what are the most significant developments that you've seen? Maybe the biggest two, if you can think of two. Like, what
Well,
if,
I mentioned that when I started, I was getting about 2 DVDs a year with description. I was so depressed in 1999, there were none. In 2002, there were none.
yeah.
That was like, oh my gosh, are we not going to have any more? And it wasn't until 2010 when Sony and Universal and Disney began adding audio description tracks. In 2011, Fox and Paramount began adding. And then we started an uphill climb. And in 2015, Warner Brothers, who's a very large producer of DVDs, began adding it. And sometimes these companies would do the description tracks in the movies, and it was so frustrating. There it was right there in their studio, and they didn't copy it over to
Ah,
DVD. And this has been a real frustration. That rarely happens today, but it does happen. You will find some titles on streaming services even without finding the same title on a DVD.
oh,
But it
interesting.
really wasn't until about 2016 and 17 when we jumped up to 150, and then pre-COVID 172. And then COVID, of course, really took a toll on the studios as well as human lives,
Yeah.
knocked us down to the 120 level. And we just coming a little bit. I'm a little surprised. People still buy DVDs. A lot
Wow.
of the stores are stopping to sell them. I walked into I think it was Walmart recently. It was either Walmart or Target, and they don't have them anymore. But you can get them, of course, on Amazon. And Amazon, whether it's DVD or Blu-ray or 4K, it's very likely to have DVD. So that in the
Isn't that
DVD
interesting?
world, those are the big things. The other one was 2015 when Netflix and iTunes started offering the streaming services, and we grew from there. I
Yeah.
actually made a chart. It doesn't even show well for anybody who has vision can see it. You can see the climb of the number of audio described titles. When I started really doing the count back in 2018 of how many, and we had 2,418, and we now have 11,541 of them. We
So
have a
it's like
very
skyrocketed, basically.
climb.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So now it's up at 11,000 somewhere.
Yep, it is.
Well, thanks, Fred. And hey, everybody, it's question and answer time. If you have any questions for Fred about all the stuff that he just talked about, or streaming services, or any questions about the website, I want to let you guys know the rest of today I'm going to be demonstrating how to use the website. And then I have 3 little instructional videos about how to enable enable audio descriptions on a few of the different streaming services. But question and answers for Fred.
All right. I'm going to start with the ones in the chat real quick.
Yeah.
Kirk asks, do you need volunteers to add audio description to movies or TV shows?
Um, audio, first place, to be an the term audio describer is a little confusing. In the professional world, the person who writes the audio description for a movie is called an audio describer.
Mm,
And the person who voices the audio description for a TV show or movie is a professional voiceover artist. There are numerous names they use. Sometimes they call themselves audio narrators or whatever, but they're really professional voiceover artists. I'm sorry, professional voiceover artists. That is a profession. It's generally a full-time job for those people. It requires a lot of skill. It requires that you have certain characteristics of your voice and you learn how to use your voice and you learn specifically how to do it for audio description. And one of the big controversies today is the use of TTS, text to
mm,
speech, artificial voices, synthesized voices. And what you're missing there is nuance. And it's that nuance of knowing, because you're a human being and you're reading some words and you're looking at a scene and you know how to say those, where you might alter the pronunciation slowly, the cadence you're doing. And that's why people like professional voiceover artists. So when you ask for volunteers, they're at a professional level, you're not going to find volunteers. You're going to find it is a profession to write and to read audio description. You may find at the local level that there are organizations that use your services with or without some form of compensation. I would suggest you go to the AD services link on the Audio Description Project website, which Tim will give you later.
yep.
And under AD services, search out your state and see if there's an organization in your state that offers services, such as in North Carolina, it's called Arts Access, and someplace else that would have a, Mind's Eye
Yeah.
or some other organization, and you may find volunteer positions there.
Great. All right. Next question.
All right. Next question. Do cable companies like Fios, Cablevision, etc., have audio description available for the blind?
And that's a very good question, because you're saying I'm a cable subscriber to any one of half a dozen or more different cable companies. Can I get audio description? Generally, the answer is yes, because the cable companies are required to pass through audio description from local stations if they're in the top 100 currently, up every year, 10 more of the 249 districts that the country is divided in become added to this. But because a lot of the feeds come from the networks themselves and they have audio description, they should be able to pass it. So if you're talking about Dish, or you're talking about direct stream, I think it's called these days, the former direct TV, or you're talking about, certainly if you're talking about Comcast, the answer is absolutely yes. And you should be entitled to a cable box which provides the ability to receive that, even if you don't have one today. I mean, let's say you've been on the plan for 10 years and you got that same old cable box. As a person who needs audio description, you should be able to call up and say, I need the box that supports audio description.
Yes.
And we have, if you go to our page on TV, under the About section, About TV, we list all the major cable services and the information that you've asked about, and phone numbers. And there's another page called Streaming, and you can look there also. That will have streaming service, like YouTube TV, for instance, is described there. And YouTube TV is one of the very best services for people who are blind, because they support audio description.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And I think, yeah, Fi is it Verizon Fios or Fios? I think I remember reading about
Yes,
that on the ADP website.
Verizon Fios supports
Yes,
audio
it
description. Yes.
does. All right, next question.
All right. We have a 708 number. If you could unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Sharon from River Forest, Illinois. Um,
Sharon.
how do you know are you able to access audio description? I mean, I have Comcast, and I know that you can go through their menus and activate that. But if you don't have that, there was a friend of mine that was asking that specific question. How do you access that if you don't have it in your cable system, for example?
Well,
Again, I think that's going to matter which cable system. If you're
Mhm.
asking specifically about Comcast, this may come back to the question of, does your friend have the right box that supports?
Right. Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. She's living in a senior facility, and I
Hmm.
told her that may depend on the provider that the facility offers. I mean, for myself, I live independently, so I can choose what I want, but depending on what my building will say.
That's true, and it may get a little tricky there, except
Yes.
if you go to your building's coordinator, quote, coordinator, and say, listen, I'm blind. I understand Comcast supports audio description. I don't know how to use it. I think I need a special box. Will you get a Comcast person out here either to show me how to do this or install the correct box
There
so
we
that I
go.
can do this?
Yeah, but then the person who wants that service, he has to pay for the Comcast services then.
No,
I
I thought you said that the facility provided Comcast. A lot of the senior living facilities provide cable service, but it's Comcast. But what I'm saying is they may have had a box that's been there for 10 years. It works
Yeah.
fine if you're sighted, but you need the
Right.
more modern
Okay.
that supports description. And you should be entitled to that with no extra charge.
Okay.
No extra charge.
Well, I hope she's listening. So
Yeah.
if not, can I direct her to the ADP website?
Yes, and go under TV and look up Comcast, and there should be a number for accessible services generally associated with each one of those
Yeah.
providers.
There are
Yeah, their
so many.
accessibility is great. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's so many
Thank you.
resources on that website. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can do one more question before we move on to the rest of our content here.
All right. Our next person is Deborah. You are allowed to talk. If you could also unmute yourself.
Well, thank you so much. Before I ask my question, I just want to say that Fred Brack, I have been seeing your name and using the site for so long, and I've never heard your voice before. And all I can say is, I don't know if ACB pays you, but whatever they pay you, it's not enough. You just do such a fabulous job, and thank you so much for it. I'm sort of a born again audio description user. I was invited back in 1989 or 1990 to be part of an advisory group for WGBH TV when they were launching audio description for PBS. And I was so in love with it. And I just had so many disappointments over the years where one theater was supposed to have it and didn't, and another theater, and one TV station was supposed to have it. And I gave up. And I went back to the old fashioned way of going with my friends and poking people in the ribs. And when all the Netflix stuff started in 2015, man, oh man, I've been making up for lost time. I have watched so much TV and binged on so many old series. And I'm the 4, Tim. You said people, the average was 2.9 or the max was 4. I subscribe to 4 services. But what my question is, when I download, sometimes I go looking for a movie that I just remember I saw it a long time ago and I loved it and I want to see it again. And if I can't find it anywhere, I buy it from one of the streaming services. Now, maybe they just plain don't have description. But what I want to know first is, if I buy a movie from Prime or Netflix or Apple and it doesn't come with description, is there something I can do about that? Should they be passing down the description with the movie when I purchase it? That's one question. And the other is, there was somebody asking here about volunteering. Well, where could we find, like, my favorite movie is like 30 years old and it's not been described. And I love it, but I know now because of description, I'm still missing about 10% of it. Is there a source where we can find volunteers to just describe one movie that got lost in the shuffle?
And
So there you go.
we get that question
Thanks.
a lot. The gist of your question is how we get an old movie described. And you have to think of the logistics that there are all these DVDs out there. There's streaming services actually get their rights to rebroadcast from many different companies. So there's many different master copies. And to go back and describe an old movie, that part would be the easiest. Getting it integrated with all of the versions that are available, say to various streaming services, is kind of a nightmare. And it is very difficult. Now, about 10 years ago, Paramount went through and picked about 50 of their old movies, and they added description, and they've made them available to streaming services. But most companies don't do that. Disney does go back and do stuff. Netflix has occasionally gone back. My favorite example of that was the series Longmire, which was on TV, and then they stopped, and Netflix picked it up for the next 2 seasons. And they went back and added audio description to the first 3 seasons,
That's
which I
awesome.
thought was fantastic. So I watched the whole thing with audio description. I'm sighted, by the way. My wife is not, but I watch everything with audio description. So the answer to your basic question is volunteers, even if you got the volunteers to do it, finding who you contact, who the owners are. For instance, all the old Fox movies are now owned by Disney. So who you go to? You don't go to Fox, you have to go to Disney because they own the content, but they use different companies to do the leasing and all of that. It's a nightmare for older stuff. The best thing you can do is continue to make your desires known. And let me just give one example. There is a series that many of you probably have heard of called The Chosen. It's a religious series.
Yep.
People are going nuts because they love it and has no audio description. And there have been some legal problems with the owners of the company and the legal rights to it. But nobody listens there at all. People have written in, called them, say, please add audio description, and nothing happens. But that's what you have to do. You have to find out who the owners are of the series, who the distributors are. You have to write them and then say, I'm blind. I love your program, but I need the audio description or I'm not going to be able to continue. Because remember, if you don't continue, that's money. Okay. One way or the other, that's money if you're not watching. The pitch we make to the people who send me all of the information is, listen, we're doing you a favor. We're getting you users that otherwise wouldn't come and be subscribers to your service.
True.
These because they need audio description. So I mean, we don't push that a lot, but I'm just saying that's behind things. So I'm afraid I can't offer you a positive answer to the idea of using volunteers to go back and describe old films.
And what about purchasing a movie from one of the primary streaming services? If there is description, should we expect, I mean, are they saying that it's provided?
If it says it's provided on our site, it says so because the company told us. Amazon is extremely good about refunding your money if that's not true. They're managing almost 6,000 titles out there, and mistakes happen. Trust me, because you folks tell me about them, and I trace them down with my contact, and he's kept busy looking things up. And sometimes we've got one out there, I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it says it's available on buy or rent, but it's only available on buy and not on rent. So I'm trying to catch that and fix that. If you come into remember, they told me, and you call up and they will refund you money on that. But the answer is, if it has description and you bought it, then description should stay with your purchase copy.
Yes,
Thank you.
that would
Thank you.
be my input as well. All right, everybody. So we're going to move on to the next part of our webinar here. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to just briefly look at the audio description project web page. So you'll hear me using JAWS for those of you that don't use a screen reader. I'm sure the screen reader voice before, but I just wanted to show you guys how easy it is to use this website. And we're just going to look at a couple different things.
Project ADP Google Chrome. The audio
So I went to adp.acb.org. Really cool thing about this page is that right when I pull it up, JAWS goes to the first form field.
Virtual wrapping to top.
On
Title
the
or partial
page.
name of a video edit. Blank.
Said title or partial name of a video. So this is where you can immediately search for a video or a series or anything like that. I'm kind of a sci-fi geek, so I'm going to do Star Trek. So I'm going to type in STAR space TREK, and I'm going to press enter.
Enter the title or partial name.
And Fred has it nicely organized that I can press H for a heading.
Found 16 titles searching for Star Trek, heading level 2.
Found 16 titles searching for Star Trek. That was the first heading on the page. Super handy.
List of 16 items.
We've got a list here.
Bullet Star Trek 2009 link iTunes, link Paramount Plus, visited link Prime Video.
So the first one was
List
Star Trek
2009.
2009, and then it had links to where that's available in streaming. And Fred, when I click on these links, where do they take me?
Link iTunes.
Link Paramount Plus. Do they take me to the streaming website, to the streaming services page, or do they take me to another page in the ADP website? I'm trying to remember.
Link find the video audio description. Link
I wrote the thing. What it does is it takes you to the page that the entry is on, organized by alphabetical letters. So
yes, that's where it just took me.
And the reason is there's so many, I can't index them all individually except on these pages. So in the case of one of the Star Trek titles, if you click Paramount Plus, it would take you to the S's in Paramount Plus, and then you would page down to find the Star Trek title that you wanted.
And we can, and we're seeing all the Paramount Plus listings.
It would then take you directly to Paramount Plus on that particular title. So as long as you were a user, a subscriber, you would already have been logged on previously in the previous day or so. It would remember that, no doubt, and it would take you right to the what we call a splash page for that title.
Nice, yeah. So I'm seeing it.
Found 6 list of bullets Star Trek Beyond 2016 link DVD link iTunes link Netflix visited link Paramount Plus visited link Prime Video.
Wow, there's a lot of options for Star Trek Beyond 2016. So really, really easy to search right when you pull up adp.acb.org. If you're using JAWS or a screen reader, it pops you right into that first edit box. With NVDA, I think you might need to jump into that edit box. I can't remember, but super easy to just search for that. And then I wanted to show you guys how to search by how to find your streaming service. And I think I can do that by doing a screen find of
wrapping to top title or partial name of a wrapping to top visited link all media AD counts.
All media
number of audio
AD
described
counts.
Titles by media number.
So this is where I got all the numbers for which streaming service has however many audio described titles, and we're just gonna jump. I'm doing a screen find just so I can jump and find it.
Visited link Netflix.
I typed in NETF, jumped me right to Netflix.
Visited link Netflix titles.
And so
equals 20 visited link.
Right here, I can just jump in and click on Netflix.
Netflix titles link. Netflix audio described titles. Netflix audio described titles.
And I'm on all the Netflix audio described titles now. And
Heading level 2 alphabetized list of Netflix.
It's an alphabetized list. So here's sort of my process. We're throwing a lot of information at you guys. But if I'm interested in seeing a movie, like say one of my kids says, I really want to watch blah, 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 right? I usually go to this website and search it up and see what streaming service has that particular movie so I can, enjoy it and watch it with my kids. And it's a bonus when it's already a streaming service that I pay for. There's another way of doing it, which we're going to look into a little bit in just a couple minutes, but you could go to, say, Netflix, look up the title, and find on the title's information page, if it has audio description. Netflix and Disney Plus are really good about that, but they're not always. Amazon Prime, you got to dig down pretty far when you pull up the information page about a title to find whether it's audio described or not. And sometimes Amazon Prime just says 16 languages and 12 whatever, 12 subtitle options. So it's tough to find sometimes. So this is a quick and easy way to do this, and it's super accessible. The website is pretty straightforward, easy to use. So I highly recommend it. I just wanted to show you guys that briefly. adp.acb.org. You can search the master list. You can go through the different streaming platforms to find what you're looking for. And then there's tons of other resources on here, like Fred talked about.
Screen sharing meeting controls.
So I'm going to stop my screen share. And then we're going to actually keep moving along here. I did stop sharing my screen, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So the first thing, so the last few videos, we're gonna chat a little bit and talk about how to enable audio described content on 3 different platforms. The first, the big boy, Netflix. We're gonna look at that, and honestly, a lot of them are very, very similar when you're dealing with the streaming platform. So on an iPhone, on an iPad, and actually I think on Apple TV and a bunch of other ways that you can stream, you have to play the title first. So you have to play the video, play the show, and then navigate to audio and subtitle options and find it from there. And once you enable it, it usually sticks around. So let's look at this first video of me enabling it and kind of walking through Netflix and how to do this. All right, everybody, we are looking at Netflix and how to enable audio descriptions for series and movies on Netflix. So I found a series that I've been watching called The Umbrella Academy, and we're at the top of that. So I just tapped on that, and now I'm going to swipe to the right. And actually, on all of their titles on Netflix, you can, once you bring up the page or the screen of that particular show, series, movie, you can swipe and find out if it does have audio description right there on the page. So
Screen dimmed.
I'm just using standard voiceover commands, and we're going to swipe around to see what we can find.
2024 TVMA 4 seasons HD audio description and subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing are available button.
So it gives the year. It talks about audio descriptions and if they're available, how many seasons, and that's right near the top of the page there.
The Umbrella Academy.
So I just swiped to the left. The Umbrella Academy, right underneath the title, was that information.
2024 TVMA 4 seasons HD audio description and subtitles for.
All right, so the way to enable audio descriptions on actually most of these platforms, Netflix included, you have to actually play the title. So I'm going to swipe to the resume button.
Top 10 resume button.
And that'll start me off where I left off.
Resume. Landscape. Close. Button. Heading not found.
And what we're going to do now is swipe until we hear language and subtitle options.
Season. Not for me. But I liked it. Loved it. Cast. Brightness. 34. Remaining. Speed. Lock interf. Episode lit. Audio and subtitle. Next tab. Show controls. Button. Show control. Play. Button. Next tab. Button. Audio and subtitle
All
options.
right, I'm going to double tap here.
Audio. Heading.
And now I'm just using, again, standard voiceover commands to swipe around.
Selected. English. Audio description.
And I already have English audio description selected, which is cool. Let's swipe to the right, see what else there is.
English. Original.
And there's the English original without audio description.
Italian. French. Spanish.
All kinds of different languages. So once we select
French. Selected. English.
audio description, double tap.
Selected. English. Close. Button.
We're just going to go to the close button.
Close. Button.
And now we can play the video and hear the audio descriptions.
They look great on him. Okay, you know what? I am so much better.
Yeah, so pretty straightforward with Netflix. Actually, they didn't win awards, but I think during that pre-show I was talking about that Forbes had done a survey and people really liked the user interface of Netflix. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty dang accessible, especially using a smartphone, using an iPhone with VoiceOver. All the labels, screen labels, all of the elements are labeled. I don't know if you guys noticed, but those screen controls disappeared very quickly after I started playing the video. In order to reach those controls again, oftentimes you have to tap on the screen to make them reappear, and then you can find. So this was all using an iPhone, using VoiceOver, and just those really standard commands when you're using a screen reader. There are instructions that can be found on the ADP website and in other places. I actually have a few links that I'm going to be sending you guys of how to enable audio descriptions, say on an Apple TV. If you have an Apple TV connected to your home television that's in your living room and you have a remote, there's kind of a different process that you go through. It's similar, but it's a little bit different. If you have a Roku TV, it's actually even more involved. And Amazon Fire Stick, there's instructions for those too to enable audio descriptions. But Netflix, that was pretty straightforward using an iPhone. And so next we are going to look at enabling audio descriptions on Apple content. And actually, this is a little bit different way of doing it. There are also restrictions. When I was doing a screen recording on my iPhone, you'll see that this one gets cut off because they don't want you recording digital content. So it actually cuts it off. But there's a bunch of good information at the beginning on how to enable these in settings on your iOS device. And yeah, if you could play that now, Elena.
Tim, family, button, settings, heading.
We are now going to look at enabling audio descriptions for Apple content and iTunes content. So the way you do this is actually not within the iTunes player or the Apple TV player. You actually go into settings and adjust this. So we're in settings on my iPhone. I'm using standard VoiceOver commands. And we're just going to swipe and drag our finger around and look for the accessibility settings.
Airplane, Bluetooth, cellular, personal hotspot, notifications, sounds and focus, screen time, general, control center, display and home screen and accessibility, button.
I'm going to double tap there.
Vision, heading.
And we're actually looking for audio descriptions, and it's a little switch box, and we're going to turn it on. So I'm just going to start swiping to the right, and we'll move through some of these settings.
VoiceOver, zoom, off, display and text size, button, motion, button, spoken content, button, audio descriptions, on, button.
Okay, it's on, but let's double tap this and look at this setting.
Audio descriptions, switch button, on. When available, automatically play audio descriptions.
When available, automatically play audio descriptions. So what I've noticed is that this global sort of turn on audio descriptions feature on the iPhone and on Apple devices just works for Apple content. So it won't work for Netflix or Max or Paramount Plus or any of these other platforms. But when you turn this on, it does work for Apple and iTunes and Apple TV content. So let's go and actually see if this works. I have a video that I downloaded around Christmas time last year.
Messages. Settings. TV. Settings. TV.
And I just moved to the Apple TV.
TV. Active. TV. Drama. 2023. Journey to Bethlehem. Library. Journey to Bethlehem.
The show is called Journey to Bethlehem. This gives some information about the show. We're on the show's page.
Drama. 2023. 1 hour 38 minutes. Image.
Drama 2023, 1 hour 38 minutes.
Rated PG, 4K, Dolby Vision, iTunes Extras, image. A young woman carrying an unimaginable.
So notice that didn't say whether it had audio description or not. Netflix and Disney Plus do on this main page.
More button. Play button.
But we're just gonna click play and let's listen if there are audio descriptions.
Media.
And that's where Apple shut me down, right there. So it does have audio descriptions. I'm actually now listening to that video again. I'm not entirely sure that enabling audio descriptions globally can't be done within the Apple TV app. I just couldn't figure it out, but it worked really well within settings. I'm sorry the speech rate was so fast on that. I noticed that too. It didn't really slow that down too much, but really going into settings on your iOS device, an iPad or an iPhone, going into settings, accessibility, navigating down to enable audio descriptions. And that should turn it on for all the Apple content. So anything you download on iTunes or Apple TV, that should turn it on. But what I did find is that it doesn't turn on audio descriptions automatically on any of the other streaming services that you might have installed as an app on your phone. And let's look now at the third one. This is the last one before we finish up, looking at how to enable audio descriptions on Prime Video, and then we'll take some questions. Now looking at Prime Video audio descriptions and how to enable those. I selected a show, some kind of Batman show, and we're on the main screen of that, and we're just going to swipe around and check it out a little bit.
Profile for image. A screen. Batman. Cape Crusader. Image. White text on a black background. Movies, TV shows. Head. Speaking rate. 70%. 65%.
Slow the speech rate down a little bit.
Season 1. Dimmed. Button.
Okay, season 1. So it's actually a little bit harder to find. It's a little further down the page to find whether a show has audio descriptions, but we're going to swipe and see if we can find that.
Resume season 1, episode 1. Button. 0. 25 minutes left. Download season 1. Start over. Button. Watch list. Button. Like. Not for me. Night. Share. Button. Trailer. Button. Welcome to Gotham City, where criminals. Animation. Bullet. Action. Star rating. 3.5. Languages. Audio. 16. Subtitles. 30. Button.
There it is. So that's all we get from Prime Video. Languages.
Languages. Audio.
There's a whole bunch of languages, like it's dubbed into 16 languages. And
languages, audio, 16, subtitles, 30.
Different subtitle languages. So chances are it has audio descriptions, but it's a little bit harder to determine from the main page. So we're going to enable audio descriptions by first playing this content.
Not for like.
Swiping, just using standard voiceover commands, swiping back to the left.
Start over. Download season 1. 25, 0, 0. Resume season 1, episode 1.
And I'm going to double tap here, and we're going to open up the player and then look for audio and subtitle options.
Video.
Come on. Please, no!
All right, I paused the video.
Rotate, button, X-ray.
And I'm swiping around to find audio and subtitle options.
Common back, X-ray, rotate, video. Rated TV 14, rated TV 14. Portrays, Clarence, Jeff Bennett, image, portrays, Jeff Bennett, image, common back, button, X-ray, rotate, video.
Sometimes we need to double tap like on the video to bring up more controls.
Audio and subtitles options.
Button. And there they are.
Play, audio and subtitles options, button. Subtitles. Audio. Close, button, selected, off subtitles.
Okay, so there's a lot of subtitle languages we have to get through here. I'm going to do a 3-finger swipe up.
Row 16 to Norse Bokmal subtitles.
Yeah, whereas in different languages here, swipe up with 3 fingers.
Portuguese, Brazil subtitles. Netherlands subtitles.
And I'm just going to start swiping to the right till we get to the audio section is what we're looking for.
Norse Bok, Indonesia, selected, English audio.
All right, so right now we're in the audio section.
Deutsch audio, selected, English audio.
What we have selected is just plain old English audio.
English audio description audio.
There's the audio description audio. Let's double tap that to select it.
Selected. English audio description audio.
Jump back up to the top of the screen with a 4-finger single tap near the top of the phone.
Subtitles.
And I'm going to swipe to the right to the close button.
Audio. Close button. Common back button.
And now I'm going to play the video. Let's hear if there's audio descriptions.
I don't know who told you I wasn't on the level, but you gotta believe me. I'd never.
A monocled figure appears.
No!
Yep, there are. Great. So here I am laughing at myself. So you guys, I don't know if you noticed that on both of those, on Netflix and Amazon Prime, on Prime Video, I used a 2-finger double tap. So that's that magic tap that's contextual, that if you're using VoiceOver on an iPhone, you can double tap with 2 fingers to hang up a call, to answer a call, to start or stop dictation, to start or stop music or other media, which includes media on Prime Video, or any kind of show that you're watching. So I was able to quickly do that with a 2-finger double tap. So wham bam, we just rolled through those real quick. Do you guys, this is our last question and answer section. If you guys have questions for me, or I think Fred is still on, if Fred still has time to hang out and answer some questions, we'll take them.
Right. So we have a hand up from Misty. You are unmuted. If you could also unmute yourself.
Hi guys. So this may be a bit of an in the weeds question, but if Mr. Brack is still around, I think he mentioned the major broadcast networks being some of the first to have AD. I have a bit of an issue, and I know I'm not the only one, with YouTube TV. You mentioned how good it was for AD, except for, excuse the lady A back there, except for the broadcast networks at the moment. I know that I and many people are having problems getting AD from NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox on YouTube TV. I can get them on the DirecTV app, but not on YouTube TV. Does anyone have any idea where that stands? I have been going around and around with Google's so-called accessibility, trying to figure out what's going on with that. So thanks.
I do have somebody who on one of our committees, the media committee, who I've consulted about that within the last 24 hours.
Okay.
And the reason I did that was because supposedly the NBC, NBC's did a fabulous job with the Olympics and audio description, and now they're starting the Paralympics. And I understand that the audio description did come through on YouTube TV. So she thinks that the NBC problem is resolved. She's not sure about the ABC, but there hasn't been a problem with CBS or Fox that we know about.
Okay.
Now, part of the way these systems work is they pick up local stations' feeds. And if the local station isn't feeding it in before it feeds it back to you, then that's a problem with the local station. And you really need to talk to both the local station and YouTube TV. I'm not a user, so I haven't been through the process myself, but there has been a problem with not all the networks passing the description through. But hopefully,
right. And now my local station does definitely pass it through. I can get it over the air, and I can get it, as I say, on the DirecTV app. I'll definitely have to check NBC and still see if it's coming through for me. But yeah, definitely. Thanks for the information.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, Misty. Awesome.
Right. And then we have a hand up from Rhonda. Rhonda, you are unmuted.
What's up, Rhonda? Got to click that unmute best you can.
All right. We'll move on to some questions in the chat.
Great.
Maybe want to try again with Rhonda in a second. Somebody asked, how do you do that on a television?
That's a good question. And the important thing to learn about a television is you need to activate audio description at the source for your TV. And what I mean by this is if you are on an antenna, then your TV remote, the one that came with your TV, is the source. If you're using a media stick like Apple TV or Roku or Fire Stick, which is what I use, then you need to use that stick and whatever means it provides to give you the signal. The method that they used on TV to give you the audio description track was something called Second Audio Program Channel, which is abbreviated SAP. It really isn't done that way anymore because of digital TV, but the idea was that you normally got your video and your audio together, and the TV industry years ago said, well, maybe we want to do something else like Spanish language, so we have created this thing called one secondary channel. And that's how they passed the audio description track. And they still call it SAP, but it really isn't, but that's not important. in the future, there will be 16 channels, but all the TVs have to be changed for that, because you really like to be able to get English, Spanish, English AD, and Spanish AD for starters, for example. So you need to go to the media stick and find out how that's done. So I use a Fire Stick, and there's a button on the far right in the second row called Options, and that's where you click to turn on audio description. It's different on the other systems. Tim mentioned that it's a little more difficult on Roku. Roku has historically been more difficult, even though it's the #1 selling media stick. It's been historically more difficult to get audio description, and people don't like the synthesized voice on Roku. I don't know why they haven't changed it or when they will. So I would personally recommend a different type of media stick. But you do want to change it on your media stick if it's coming in through a media stick as opposed to over the air.
All right, and that leads perfectly into our next question, which is, which streaming TV is best? Apple TV, Alexa enabled, Roku enabled, Google Home enabled, etc.
Yikes.
Well, what car is the best manufacturer? Who makes the best chocolate? It's largely personal. As I say, looking back over years, Roku has historically been the most complained about for people who are blind, although millions of people who are blind have Roku sticks, and they're willing to tolerate the voice that's on it. And most of the streaming services now work with it. I personally am pretty happy with the Fire Stick, but I'm sighted, and I don't know whether a person who is not sighted would say it's the easiest one to use. People seem to like Apple TV a lot. Fire Sticks are a lot cheaper than an Apple TV, I'll say that. And of course, you do need one, whether it's an Apple TV or it's a Fire Stick, for each TV that you happen to use.
And the Fire Stick does have a built-in screen reader, right?
Yes, it does. Again, I don't use that.
Text-to-speech.
You are correct. It does have. It
Yes.
also has I would make this recommendation. You can say, I'm going to buy the cheapest one possible. I don't recommend that. I would buy the latest and greatest, which is 4K enabled, not because you necessarily want to buy a 4K screen, although if you're low vision, you might very well want to do that, but because it has some dedicated buttons for Netflix, Prime Video, and Direct Stream, I think it is, and one other streaming service. It may be Peacock, I don't remember. So at least you've got 3 buttons that will choose 3 different services.
Nice.
Therefore, I would like to mention one other thing regarding streaming services. If you like Disney, Hulu, and Max, they now offer a triple package. You can buy all together. Disney and Hulu are the same company. Max is not, but they've gone in together, and through any one of them, you can buy all 3 and get about a $5 a month reduction. And there are many, many special offers. Buy an Apple device, get 3 months of Apple.
Yeah.
Free. Verizon offers stuff, T-Mobile, whatever. Check on our streaming page. There's a chart there which shows what we know about or what we've heard about will get you some free or discounted streaming services.
Once again, that audio description website is full of resources. I got to mention, we use an Apple TV here at my place. I really like it because you can enable voiceover on it, and a lot of the commands are the same by swiping on the remote. The new remotes have like an area where you can swipe with your finger. You can also connect your iPhone to it, so you can use your iPhone, the keyboard on your iPhone, to type into the Apple TV, so you don't have to hit right arrow 100 times to find the L letter on your keyboard. So you can actually use your phone as kind of a keyboard that inputs into the TV. So I would recommend Apple, but it sounds like Fire Stick's good too. And yeah, we have any other questions?
I don't see any.
Well, everybody, again, you'll be getting that email with all kinds of useful resources and information from today's webinar. Also, please take the survey. I use all kinds of answers from the survey to come up with topic ideas and just how to improve and get better. So we really want to wish you guys a great rest of your Wednesday, whether it's in the evening or the afternoon. Actually, it's both now because it's evening over here on the west side. So, hey, great joining us today. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much again, Fred.
You're welcome. Glad to
All
be here.
right. Talk to you again, man.